Well, it's 7 o'clock and it's Wednesday, and that means we're open at the top. And I'm Reverend Greg Dorst, just like I am every Wednesday. You know, it's funny, we have different names for different times of the week or the day. On Wednesday, I'm Reverend Greg Dorst. Whenever my grandkids are around, I'm Papa. And Jackie, of course, calls me the love of her life. And so other times I'm just Greg, you know, and I like being just Greg. Oh, I forgot. When I'm teaching, I'm Grandmaster G. And you know, to be a Grandmaster means that you're the head of a group that knows. And so I like being the head of a group that knows, because it's about you, it's not about me. And so the Gnostic group that I hang around is at the Sanctuary for Spiritual Living in Covina. And I happen to be the assistant minister there. But I'm in charge of this entire Wednesday night Open at the Top service, except for the producing. And that would be Jackie, the producer, that handles that.
Jackie.
So we're open at the top, and I do this. I put my hands up to capture all the good that's on its way to us. I'm doing it for you too, so know that that's true. Behind me, you see some palm trees. We're facing to the sort of southeast today. We have a different view of the lake, and you're likely to see today some herons, because when I walked up here and set the whole camera down and got the studio set up, 2 herons were scared away. They were fishing over here, and they're fishing for a reason. Of course, it keeps them alive personally, but they have nests in the tree just over about 100 yards to my left, and inside those nests are babies. And those baby heron are starting to look like real herons. Their beaks are getting longer. They're testing their wings all the time. And one nest has 3 in it, and that's very, very cool. So we're out on sort of a peninsula, which means that the usual shoreline is about 30 or 40 yards from here, and we're out at the end of a peninsula, which kind of shortens the view across the lake. But I think you can see the water, and it's beautiful. So, you know, usually it takes a few minutes for people to get on. So Jackie asked me if I would just talk about something that's not my talk for a few minutes, and I think I'm going to do that. And it's sort of like the affirmation before our regular service, but it's not really, because I'm going to be commenting on it. It has to do with something that I wrote and something that we talked about today. You know, there's a traditional idea of the soul. The traditional idea of the soul that it's God in us, you know, and what it does is operate as the spiritual part of this being, this human being called Greg or Jackie or you. And it is independent in a sense of the body, because it doesn't die. The body expires. We're protoplasm, and the body's going to expire and go away because it wears out. But the soul doesn't. And so the soul, in the traditional sense, is that which might go to heaven, or that which might transport to some other area of the universe, or, you know, maybe even find itself in another body if you believe in reincarnation. So there are lots of things that can happen to the soul, but that's a traditional understanding of it. So I started writing a little bit on the soul, and I thought that I'd share it with you, because this is a little bit different than the traditional understanding. So here's what I think is operational with the soul, because I believe I can feel it. You know, if really this soul is that God presence in you, then it must be love, because the presence of God is love. So consider that while you hear this. I can actually consciously feel my soul as the moment when the presence of God descends into me from head to toe and permeates the most difficult aspects of being human with love. I'm going to read that again. I can actually consciously feel my soul as the moment when the presence of God descends into me, and I feel it from head to toe and permeates the most difficult aspects of being human with the love, which is God's presence. You know, there are some difficult aspects of being human, but if I can see those difficult aspects of being human as also the presence of God, as being filled with love, the presence, then it changes the character of them completely. And so I think that the soul takes anything and everything that it gets into conscious union with and transforms it into that presence of spirit, the presence of God, the universal goodness. You know, this allness that we're a part of is amazing stuff. And it's this allness that I want to talk about a little bit tonight that shows up in your isness. And tonight I'm talking about what I call the drill. That's the title of this talk. It's called The Drill. And a drill is kind of interesting because it has connotations sometimes of first responders who practice maybe putting out fires or rushing to fires or getting to fires, or the drills that military personnel might be engaged in, or just your family drill as to how to get out of the house if there's a fire or an earthquake in your own residence. We call it a drill, and that's something we practice in order to save our lives. And so I look at this talk today as being filled with things that we might practice to save our lives, to save the way we feel about our lives, because that's what's really happening. You know, it's not the life that is the living being, it's the way we feel about it that brings the character to our lives. And so I'm going to start with a little story. I'll start with this story.
You're saying that the sound and stuff's cutting out a little bit.
So I'm being told the sound is cutting out. Let's make sure that we've got it all completely up as high as we can get it. Yeah. It's cutting out on your end. It's clear for me, says somebody. So we're hoping that the sound is good. Can you hear that? Everything good? All plugged in? Wave if you can hear me. There we go. We cannot figure out how to find this link, says Pamela. Well, Pamela, it looks like you found it. So the drill, the first drill that we've had to deal with is how to make all of this work in remote spots. You know, we're not inside of a church. And that separation, that feeling of separation, sometimes is difficult. You know, it takes some getting used to. The length of time that this is going to happen is also taking some getting used to. I mean, that's part of the uncertainty that we have to live with, where a drill might be important to step into a practice that helps you to deal with that. So the story I'm going to tell you is about Navy SEALs and about a man by the name of Mark Divine. They call him Commander Mark Divine, and Mark Divine was a Navy SEAL for 2 decades, and he was the head of several different SEAL teams at different times. But Mark Divine stepped into his role as the head of the SEAL team and recognized that they were all the people he was leading were fantastic athletes, that they were great shots, that they could hold their breath for 4 or 5 minutes, that they could swim and run and do anything that was asked of them from a physical standpoint, and appeared to be machines in the sense that they could do exactly what was asked of them. But he also noticed that during stressful times that these men were performing in a less competent way. And the stressful times he saw in the heat of battle the first time, and recognized that the best shots were not shooting as accurately as they had. They were not thinking in ways that were tactically inspired. Their blood pressure was soaring and their heart rates were increasing, and it affected the way that they were thinking. It affected their response. And what he thought in that moment of the heat of battle was that they were at risk because of their own bodily functions, because of the way that they were responding naturally to scary things. And of course, anybody's going to be scared in the heat of battle, but he thought that the way he could help his people to be more effective, and in fact to live in the heat of battle rather than get killed on the battlefield, was to try and help them control some of these things that were going haywire, like the heart rate, like the blood pressure, like their thought processes, so that they could make clearer and better decisions in the heat of the moment. And so what he did was he started some meditation techniques, some visioning techniques, had them do affirmations, basically built a spiritual toolbox for his SEAL team. And the SEAL team that he wanted to build was one that would be completely able to handle pressurized situations, to actually, through their mind, be able to lower their blood pressure, through their mind, be able to lower their heart rate, so that they could make better decisions and be a better team member. So he put this into practice with his SEAL team, and he found that it made an amazing difference in the way that they performed when performance became necessary. And so it actually became part of the SEAL team regimen. So when SEALs are being trained, they learn a spiritual toolkit, and that spiritual toolkit has meditation in it. It has affirmations, and he also believes in prayer. He believes in Mark Divine believes in a conscious contact with something other than yourself, because he believes that there is an allness out there that controls all things, and our mind taps into it. I mean, he's essentially a religious scientist in a uniform, and he wanted to make this part of a curriculum that was taught through the Navy to all 6 SEAL teams, and he was successful at that. And so what he did was set up a situation where he was, through spiritual practices, helping to protect his people, helping to accomplish the mission in a better, more successful fashion. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, you don't find that kind of insightful training in other skill sets, other professions that you'd probably need it in. You know, I mean, it hasn't permeated the police department, and they find themselves in difficult situations all the time. You know, it's not part of regular training for law enforcement. It's not part of regular training for firemen. And me, as a lawyer, it's not part of regular training for lawyers either. And so you see really unhealthy lawyers that are not following well-being practices, that can't handle the stress of what it is that they're doing, which is actually stepping into the heat of battle, sometimes with magnificently huge stakes, and not performing well because they haven't been able to deal with the pressure. And the way that people deal with the pressure, if they're not trained in these kinds of things, is to drink, or act out inappropriately, or use drugs, or maybe even fall into depression. One of the things that creates a depressive circumstance is uncertainty. And it's uncertainty, I think, that the drill is most effectively counters, because I'll call this the drill, Mark Divine's drill. We too can find that drill to be helpful in our circumstances, because we are faced with the kind of uncertainty that people who are first responders or people who go to battle face. We're in a situation where we have no idea how this is going to turn out. We don't have any idea how we're going to make it financially. We don't have any idea whether our jobs are going to look like what they used to look like. We have no clue whether or not we're going to be able to walk back into a building and sit next to the people that we love. We just don't have any idea whether or not that's going to happen. And so we can sit around and we can complain about it. We can say, oh my God, this is horrible. You can have a drink and have another one and have another one. You can get depressed and pull the covers over your head and wonder whether or not you'll even be alive. Or you can step into the drill. You can step into the drill that Commander Mark Divine has set forth for you, and I'm going to set forth for you right now. And here's the drill for you. The drill is to find a nice, peaceful place. To find a place that is filled with serenity for you. It doesn't have to be completely quiet. I mean, I'm in a place right now that is obviously not quiet. I mean, there is a whole series of sirens that are going on, and I'm not sure what that's about. But you don't have to be in a place that's quiet, because you're going to utilize your own ability to pay attention consciously to what's important to you in the moment, which will push out anything that makes it difficult for you to concentrate. So you find that space where you're able to, in the moment, know that you're going to be able to concentrate on what's important. Then I want you to visualize, just visualize from that space with your eyes closed, your eyes open, whatever. Visualize in your mind what it is you'd like to see in your life, how it is you'd like to be. Then I want you to feel that. I want you to feel that being. I mean, it might be in a house that you really enjoy, or a place that you really want to be, or it might be a visualization of, you know, your grandchildren or your children and you enjoying the moment with them. And then I want you to go into a meditative, conscious meditation circumstance where those people, those circumstances that you visualized are in your meditation. And what you're doing is using those things as a mantra. And I do that all the time. I will sit in meditation and ostensibly clear my mind and keep it clear by saying, I love my grandchildren. I see my grandchildren. I can feel my grandchildren. I can hear my grandchildren. I hear my wife. I feel the lake, the breeze coming off of the lake. I feel the heat of the sun on my face. I can use those as mantras to keep me in the moment, that meditative moment. I mean, this is part of the drill. This is how we can keep our blood pressure down, our fears away. This is how we can step into this arena and actually live life and control our circumstances in this moment. We don't have to live in that uncertainty when we're certain that we love one another, that when we're certain that we have a vision that works, when we're certain that we're protected. And then I ask you, as a part of these spiritual tools of this drill, to envision the white light of God, the white light of spirit, a universal intelligence that just encapsulates everything around you and all that you love. It's a light of security and safety. It is a knowing that there is something beyond anything we know that is protecting us, that is allowing us and demanding of us that we move forward in a way that is loving and caring and good and compassionate and alive. You know, all that we see, we're told in the Bible, is created by God. You know, God created everything that we see over the course of 6 days and then rested. All that we feel was created according to this biblical message by God. And I believe all of that because I believe that there's a singular source for all that we see and all that we feel. You know, God simply created all that is out of itself. And we see the beauty behind me. And you can hear the breeze. And you've actually heard some of the herons that are part of that creation. I mean, that's beautiful stuff. God created all of that and simply did so out of itself. Now, I believe that that's God, but I also believe that God is the power behind all of that, the power back of all that, that stretches farther than the infinite will allow, that just continues on, keeps growing and evolving and becoming, and responding to that becoming by allowing experiences in each of our lives and creating new ones for even those that aren't here yet. And so this drill has to do with a set of spiritual tools, prayer and meditation and visualization and the affirmations that I can call mantras in my meditation, because I like to use those affirmations as mantras in my meditation. But here's the other part of the drill. The other part of the drill is not just to deal with those interiors, but also to deal with the exteriors, the material world, in a way that's really important. Call that loved one. If you can see that loved one, see if you can. If you can go to a place that is absolutely magnificent for you, that just brings about that heartfelt feeling of love, go. Take a walk. Take a prayer walk. Take a meditation walk. I mean, all of this is stuff you can control. You might not be able to control the things that I've been talking about, that creates the uncertainty. but you can control these things that you're perceiving in your mind and seeing in front of you. You can take a different look at it. You can reframe this into something beautiful, even though beyond that somewhere is still the uncertainty. It doesn't have to guide you and scare you and keep you in fear. You know, that's when you actually make your world smaller. But let me tell you, uncertainty is a difficult circumstance. You know, there are guidelines now around the keeping of prisoners of war, and to have them in a situation which is uncertain, meaning they never know when they're going to be released, they never know when they're going to be fed, they never know when they're going to be able to sleep, they never know all of the things that we kind of need to know in order to get our biological clock together. All of those things are denied them. If that happens, that's called torture now. The uncertainty that is created in the mind can torture you. And it is classed as torture today. And so uncertainty is really, really difficult. And I think that uncertainty is one of those situations where the drill is necessary. So uncertainty tests our spiritual practice and the depth of our spiritual practice, because we have to have a drill. We have to have the ability to reframe what we see around us, not as bad, but as good. Recognizing and knowing that there are things out here that we can't control, but we're going to step right on through them and start to practice the things we can control. Start to practice our own perception of things. You know, I do a lot of writing. And today I ended up writing an article. And essentially the article was about how circumstances that are seemingly filled with suffering and difficulty can bring about a silver lining effect, meaning it can force you to move into things that you weren't willing or able to move into before, which will actually make your life better in the long run. You know, that kind of thing happens in organizations that have been changed dramatically by this pandemic that we're in. And we don't know whether or not that's going to change our church organization either, you know, but we have to be ready and willing and able to step into something new and to say yes to new ideas and to be open to new ways to communicate. You know, one of the reasons, and I need you to know this, one of the reasons why I go out to the lake and I change the location, and producer Jackie helps me do all of that kind of stuff. One of the reasons I do it is because I want to be ready and open for any changes that are necessary. This is hard. This is hard to get together, and there's uncertainty with regard to whether or not it's even going to work. You know, but we step into it because we know that this is actually the drill for what might be happening in the future when it comes to spiritual congregations. And so we're going to be able to stay together. We're going to stay together somehow, you know, and we'll find a way to do it. But, you know, we're going to have to do it in a different way, probably, at least for a while, and maybe have to do it in a different way down the road. You know, I've talked before about how maybe someday we'll all meet in some nature space where a talk like this will be done in a park, or a talk like this will be done on a hilltop. And you'll bring your own chair and you'll sit down and you'll listen to it. And if I have something to say, I'll give it to you. And if somebody else has something to say, I'll give them the opportunity to say it. It'll be a community that's filled with love and filled with soul, which I believe is that conscious understanding of the presence of God from head to toe, moving through you, taking control as the presence, which is love, in every difficult human experience. Every difficult human experience is filled with the presence of God. Every difficult human experience is God. There's a silver lining in there. And it's our job to reframe and find it. It's our job to actually make it a part of our experience in a way that makes it that beautiful and learning and captivating experience. So look, we just have fun doing this, don't we? We just have a blast. Do you think we've had fun so far tonight, Jackie?
Absolutely.
I think so too. I really do too. This has been a wonderful evening. I hope you've gotten some of the sounds. I don't think I heard the bullfrog. Did you hear the bullfrog? I didn't hear the bullfrog. But you heard a heron, didn't you?
And a hummingbird landing.
And apparently a hummingbird was in the picture, but that's a good thing. Hummingbirds are fabulous. We actually have a hummingbird preserve here. It's, I think, supposed to be filled with more hummingbirds than any other area, and we sure see them a lot. So thank you so much. Jackie, do you have some info for me? Is there something I need to take a look at and read? Are there people who were on tonight that I need to thank for coming?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to do that right now. So it's been a pleasure to see you, Peggy. Absolutely a pleasure. And Monica and Agnes and Martha Morris, Katie Peterson. What a beautiful evening out here in California, huh? We miss you. And Sue Haynes, Mary Hercules, Corinne Kemp, Kelly, Shannon Finley, Jan, Wendy Herrera, Cindy Mulhern, Charlie McMillan. Good to see you, Charlie. Pam and Elka, Wendy Scrupa, Carol Bliss, my loving sister, by the way, who has a Friday night service, a Friday night experience that's going to be happening this Friday at 7 p.m. right on this same Sanctuary for Spiritual Living Facebook site. So you can just tune in for her Friday experience. I'm really looking forward to it. There you go, Carol. And Deborah Valentine, so good to see you. It's great to see you. RJ and Bonnie and Mallory. You got to get Mandy and the rest of them on too. Annabelle and Joe, it's a pleasure to see you tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please share this. Please share it. I think a lot of people need to hear this Mark Divine story. A lot of people need to hear this drill idea, because this is not something that should be hidden. These spiritual practices that can change our life need to be disseminated so that people can fashion their own drill and make it work for them. So please share it on their Facebook pages.
Tom Grawl is tuned in.
Hey, Tom Grawl,
And
good to
Jamie-
see you.
Jamie Howard.
And Jamie Howard, right on. Well, look, we're getting bigger as we speak. So if you missed the first part of it, you can just go back and get it in a short period of time. So please share it, and I will see you guys next week.
And Bobby.
Love you, Bobby.